Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk to me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so serious?
World! I could do this all day.
Are you watching closely?
Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of the One-Eyed Film Podcast. We are here with the Nolan Bros in person for one of the last times in a while because Josh will be leaving for college. But that's something separate. Today we are talking about Barbenheimer, the double feature Oppenheimer Barbie movie combo that we just saw this afternoon. There's some stuff to talk about. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. We've been talking a little bit. I want to start it off by saying that if you're not familiar with Barbenheimer, there have been a lot of movies in the past that are very similar vibes that come out very close or even on the same day, and some people get them confused. I believe White House Down and Angel Has Fallen, I think, are the names of one time that happened. But also, there are times when movies have completely opposite tones that come out on the same day that are very popular. This happened 15 years ago with The Dark Knight and Mamma Mia. And there wasn't really meme culture back then, but apparently now it's called Dark Mama. The combo is Dark Mama. But Oppenheimer and Barbie movie came out this weekend, and everyone's been calling it Barbenheimer. It's been big because of the memes. And just to start this off, I don't think the memes helped it live up to the quality of either movie.
A little overhyped.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, because it's interesting because I only learned about Barbieheimer or Open Barbie or whatever because you guys talked about it, and it's just I think it's another aspect of the weird internet culture that has developed, which could only happen nowadays. But yeah, it was, for the most part, I would say it was probably a bit overhyped. But then again, considering a lot of the other films that have come out, anything coming from like Disney is either a remake or a sequel or a weird flop for Pixar with Elemental recently. These are two movies that are so different. They're coming out at the same time, and they're both by relatively respected actors with a high movie budget, and so it's something to be hyped about. So I think that's definitely an aspect that helped for these movies at least.
It also doesn't really help that Super Mario Bros. Also just came out. That's such a meme-ish movie, and I feel like people are just looking for the next thing that's going to be a very meme-ish movie. And why not make your own duo like Oppen Barbie or Barbieheimer, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's overhyped, but then again, it was very fun to be hyped about it. And it haven't gotten that for a movie in a while since Disney has just been putting out, I'll be brutally honest about it, crap.
Yeah.
They haven't been putting out anything that's worth watching. Whereas this stuff, I'd say it's worth watching, but not a second time.
Mm-hmm. That's what I want to talk about and focus on, because on our drive back from the movie, we talked about kind of this standard that I have for movie watching and how good a movie is if you'd watch it again. And when I realized that I would not watch Oppenheimer again was a very weird moment for me because it was so hyped, only because of this meme culture of Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
And yes, you kind of expect the next big thing from Nolan, and it was a good movie. But when I think about all the other Nolan movies that I could watch, I would watch those in a heartbeat as opposed to Oppenheimer. And that was a very weird moment for me. For Barbie, I would probably watch it again. And that's not the outcome that I thought I would have for this weekend. Barbie wasn't my favorite either, but it was a very enjoyable, funny movie. And we'll talk about each of them in their own right here in a sec.
Yeah, well, I suppose if we just want to get started then, I'll say my piece about Oppenheimer then. I thought, from my perspective, going through other Nolan films, it was very long, 3 hours, very, very long, very drawn out.
Halfway through it, and I thought I was almost done,
yeah,
so I just held it.
It just kept on going on and on and on. It obviously has, like you said, it's, I would say technically speaking, it's a good film, great cinematography, the bomb that they blew up, that was probably the highlight of the movie.
It wasn't a letdown.
It wasn't bad. I don't regret going to watch it, and I could watch it again. I probably won't because it's just super long, but you had really good actors. Cillian Murphy did a fantastic job. Nolan just made a good film, but it's just, I don't think it's as interesting as his other films because he told it in a kind of interesting way with sort of non-linear, but also it just went on for so long and kept on going, and there's so much talking at the end. I personally just found it it's fine. I enjoyed it. I kind of like the different aspects, especially going into the mind of Oppenheimer, but it was very, very long, and then there was those short sex scenes where it weren't too much, But they were
If you're
definitely
looking
like
at the ground, they're not too much.
The bowl of popcorn became very interesting in those
Yeah,
moments.
Or William became very interesting. Yeah, I don't usually stare intently at him, but that night I did.
Well, thank you for noticing. But yeah, it was a pretty long film, and there are certainly some things that they could have like edited out. I think would have been fine and a lot better.
I used to think that the longer the movie, the better. Like when I learned the length of Zack Snyder's Justice League, I was like, wow, that means that it's kind of what we've talked about with video games, is that so much movie is tried to be condensed into 2.5 hours. And with filmmakers trying to make them longer means they have more story to tell. But it's a lot to sit through. And it's different than binge watching a TV show. Like that was Nolan's excuse for not being criticized on a long movie, was people will watch 6 hours of a TV show.
Yeah.
But then you have bathroom breaks and you can get up and stretch, and you can't really do that in a theater. It got very long. Again, not unenjoyable.
Plus, usually when you think of like a long story, if we're saying it was long, but not because of a lack of story, that's something that's I want to make clear. There was a lot of story there, and it's not like they were trying to draw anything out, but some of the story, I guess, just wasn't interesting enough for me to feel like it was worth the extra hour of showtime that the show got.
And what is the one thing we've kept saying about Oppenheimer that was kind of a letdown? Not a letdown, but a kind of a thing that didn't help it.
It was missing the wow factor.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking of?
That and names.
Yeah. And names.
Having it being a historical drama, there are a lot of names. That's just naturally how it happens. It became a lot. I think there were multiple times when they said a name, it was supposed to be twisty and like, oh, that person. I had no idea who they're talking about.
Yep.
And maybe that's just me, because I'm a guy who needs faces to understand who you're talking about. I don't think it was just a lot of people in one movie. I explain it as it's a lot of movie for a movie, not only in length, just in content, in actively watching it to try and figure out what the heck is happening, because Nolan likes that nonlinear storytelling perspective, which also helps this movie, I believe, in the way that it still progressed it dramatically, even though it was difficult to understand which timeline was first. It was still the best way to tell the story, instead of from college to Los Alamos to the hearings. It wouldn't have worked linearly.
I would actually slightly disagree there.
Okay. Beef.
I love the way that Christopher Nolan does not like to do a linear movie. He just doesn't do A to B. He's got A to B, C to D, and then all of those are overlapping and on top of
and
each other.
time traveling each other.
And time travel. And one's backwards.
Yes.
And
maybe upside down.
Yeah. But for this movie, since it's I don't want to say it's a simple story, but it's a very straightforward story, and it's historical, so I don't feel like there was that much of a need to have 4 different times that you're seeing it from. What I wish would have happened is they kind of broke it up into segments before and after the explosion, so that you have 2 times going on before, maybe college and the bomb making, and then after you've got more of the bomb making, and then the courtside and stuff like that, where you'd see kind of almost a halfway point, which would be, in a sense, like the big explosion. That's kind of one thing that I wish would have happened, just because it would have made it a little bit easier to follow. But that's just my critique. I have no idea what it's like to make a movie.
When you say courtside, you don't mean basketball.
Yeah, not courtside.
Not basketball courtside.
I do not dabble or dribble.
I mean, one thing that I don't really think they ever... I'm not sure what this was, but did you see at the beginning of the film, they had like that, the 1 point and then the fusion or fission, and then they had like the 2... I thought that was going to be like an act system. So they're going to have like Act 1, fusion, Act 2, fission or whatever, Act 3, explosion or something. But I don't know, nothing came of that. So
I thought it was going to be very similar to Dunkirk, because he did the same thing in Dunkirk.
That's
the
what I
air,
thought.
land, and sea one, and the different ways he told that story. But they didn't do that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think overall, like, yeah, you can definitely go watch it and enjoy it. It's, again, not a bad film.
Bring something to cover your eyes. I don't think that there's anybody who can watch that kind of scene and not... I've got to bring light to it, because it is a lot. It is very graphic in those areas, so be prepared to like mentally block your view, or just full on block your view.
Literally.
And look at your friend, no matter how weird they look. No offense. Don't punch me on the way home.
But in the greater concept of storytelling, I understood that those scenes were going to be in there. I was disappointed that they had to be. They kind of, like, I've said that the scene needs to have a reason for being in there, and I see how it needed to be in there, because it played a part in Oppenheimer's life. He was a womanizer. He had affairs and such. That's not
so graphically.
Yeah. I told you guys in the car, I think Oppenheimer could have easily been a 2-hour PG-13 movie if they
Agreed.
tried.
Agreed.
It was not, and I think that's worked against it rather than for it.
Yep.
Yeah. So Barbie.
Barbie.
So after we just watched a literal bomb going off, we decided to fill our heads with some pink.
Barbie was a good second movie to watch. I think it would have
I'm
been
glad
very
we left with that.
I think it was very depressed. It would be very depressing to do the other way around. We did it because of schedules, but Barbie was fun.
That's a word you can use.
It is.
Yeah.
I almost felt guilty for laughing at some of it, but I think we can talk about that here. Barbie is a very feminist movie. I'm not going to deny that, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
It played both sides of the aisle, where it had a story that pushed for moms to be with their children, and like if a woman wants to be a mom, yes, absolutely you can. Now that's more of a command in the Bible, but if a woman wants to work a job, she can do that. Like it leaned both ways between don't be so hard on women to feel like they need to be the servants and slaves, yes, but also that they have the choice to do what they want, yes.
Yeah.
I do think the men kind of got the short end of the stick in Barbie, and that's where the feminism shows, is that it kind of... again, that's where I sometimes felt bad for laughing at it, because it wasn't demeaning towards men. I found it very funny of all the stereotypes of men that they were showing. It was taking any type of stereotype of men and cranking it to an 11 and just going with that. It's like if you got the basics of manliness, and just that is what men are. Like there's a lot more to us, and we are really ones to be talking about a movie like Barbie. But they were so funny, and I was not offended at all by any of them. It was like, it's not really spoilery, but Ken comes back from the real world when Barbie's not there to Barbie Land, and he turns Barbie Land into Kenopolis or Ken World or Kendom. And they just have
Land, I think is what it was.
something stupid like that. And they have pull-up bars and mini fridges and horses, and they're just
and the fight
gym equipment everywhere.
It's so funny.
It's men boiled down and then extrapolated.
Yep.
And I think that's what made it so funny for me, is the just being so stupid about the things we enjoy. Now, obviously, especially biblically, there's a lot more to manliness and manhood, and that's where I think it fell short. And I want to give you guys a chance to talk, but it was enjoyable to the point where I would watch it again, while also cautioning like the things that are pushed in it, because some of them are over the edge one way and not too far enough in the other way.
Very easily walk away with a theme or a message that would not be biblical. Very easily. Like there's this one scene where they're trying to persuade the Kens into doing something rather than going to this hearing so that the Barbies would be able to just walk in and then have Barbie Land back. Spoiler alert after the spoiler, but I definitely think that there was a lot of themes of basically just girls manipulating their way around things, which is not a good theme at all.
Yeah.
And there's also a few over-the-top things about the patriarchy and stuff like this, and I didn't let it get to me during the movie. I was still able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I do think that a little bit of the joking about Kens and just men in that manner kind of turned into a bit of a mockery, but I was also mocking myself because it's low-key kind of true.
Yeah.
We're complex but simple-minded, if that
very
makes
weird,
sense.
yeah.
It's a conundrum.
Yeah.
You're allowed to laugh at yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not gonna be offended by some movie about Barbies.
No, and yes, there is a biblical way to be manly, and it obviously wasn't a biblical movie, so it's not going to show that, but it probably wasn't the best for the case of biblical manhood and being a leader and all that, but it was where it tried to uplift women and the women power and all that. It didn't push men down, but it didn't do the same. It just kind of left them here, and that was it's an acceptable place to laugh at us, laugh at ourselves, and be funny.
Yeah, because that's like the thing we've been kind of like talking about and scratching our heads over, is like what the exact messaging and themes were, because it was kind of weird. I mean, I would say it this way, like, you can definitely tell Barbie was, like, made by, like, a female director, and it's heavily, I mean, it's a Barbie movie.
Yeah.
But it's like, a bit more complex than people would generally think about a Barbie movie. And so it was definitely, like, it's kind of like, almost like the cliche of, like, the chick flicks or, like, romantic comedies. Like, people go to those, and you know that it's not exactly giving a good message or whatever. Like, you probably shouldn't believe what this movie's selling. But you go it not for the message or whatever. You just go to kind of have a good time. And that's what I think you can really go to Barbie, is, like, you're just aware that Barbie is a movie that's, like, kind of like almost a stereotypical woman's view of a stereotypical guy taken to an extreme, and just vice versa an extent. But you go to that and you can just laugh and enjoy it and just kind of have a good time with your friends, and that's kind of what we had. And I think if you have that, you can enjoy it.
And they talked about how Barbie was like what women are extrapolated, and how that can be a bad thing. And I think the same can be said about men or the Ken doll, except they didn't explore that to the point of it's just the Ken dolls and the Barbie dolls are just supposed to be the stereotypical man, the stereotypical woman, and that they made the message of that's bad for women and Barbie doll or whatever, but they didn't get there with Ken. And I think that if they were to do that in a neutral way, I would think that they would make the same point between the two.
I would say that the Barbie movie didn't really give good examples or didn't really try to show like good biblical examples of men or women per se, but that wasn't exactly their point.
The point was to kind of take a very difficult topic to talk about, like feminism or patriarchy or just genuine kind of a war that's going on between both genders, and just make light of the situation and have a good laugh where everyone can go to watch a movie and enjoy it for the sake of enjoying a movie about this topic rather than having to fight about it.
So true. And I think that the two movies together bring up a good point. They were both decent movies and they both had their flaws. Are you going to let that ruin the entire movie for you, or are you going to let it just understand that you're not in control of what's in the movie and you can choose to take away what you take away?
What you are in control of is what's in your head.
Facts.
Yep.
And what you take away is what you take away, and if you apply it, that's your fault based off of anything that happens thereafter. True. It's your responsibility to make sure that you are keeping whatever's going on in your head in check, regardless of what movies you're watching, whatever TV shows you're watching. The only person that can truly hold you accountable with that is God. And we should ultimately be going to the Bible for any sort of critical thinking, whether it be from a Oppenheimer or Barbie or some feminist movement or just ever. God should ultimately be the person that we go to see if this is really something that we should be applying to our lives.
Bars. Over? Yeah.
Bars.
Okay.
Bars.
Yeah, honestly, and I think that's just what Josh said. You're exactly right. Like, these movies are more, they have some good depth to them. And so like for Oppenheimer or for the Barbie movie, they can be good places to start conversations about, like for Oppenheimer it's more like, the nuclear, the point of like nuclear arms and how we deal with that. And for Barbie it's a bit more like based on like the ideas of gender and how like the two like men and women kind of relate to each other. But then again, it's also about, going into these movies, you also are thinking about, they're trying to present a message. What am I taking out from this? What are they saying? What does the Bible say? And things like that. And to always have that in mind. But
you should never go to a movie, see that message, and just take that message then and there. You should always be going through the filter of the Bible. There's no question about it. Even if it's someone like a pastor, even if it's someone who's in an authority who's speaking from the Bible, you need to be holding it accountable to yourself as well and going to the Bible yourself, because that's the only way that you can directly communicate with God, because he uses the Bible like that.
Absolutely. And that's what we're pushing for on this podcast, is to be discerning, not only in movies, but in everything we do.
Bars.
With that said, that's going to wrap it up for this episode.
Yep.
This one-off summer episode that we got to record, I have missed recording with you guys, and I've missed putting out episodes so that people can listen to them. I've been a little busy this summer, but we are getting back to that in not too long from now. So stay tuned for what I'm just calling Season 2, only because we took a summer break.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new things coming. We got ideas for topics. We got ideas for how the podcast is formatted, how it looks, how it runs. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be awesome. Coming to you in about a month. I'll say that.
We will see you when we see you.
It's not going to be that long. So stay tuned for that. And while you're waiting, listen to our past episodes. We got a whole bunch on Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and all our social media platforms, and share this with your friends.
Yep.
All right. Peace out, brethren.
Yeah, there it is.
All right,
I
see ya.
missed it. All right. God bless.